the Australian's chief political correspondent, Geoff Chambers. Geoff, these are appalling polls for Anthony Albanese. He's clearly ending the note behind. There is starting to be speculation that he could only lead the government for one term. How realistic do you think that is?
Hi, Shari. It's not uncommon for governments to suffer a mid-term slump, but the sheer volume and bottleneck of issues and really sensitive issues for Labor around national security and economic management in relation to the cost of living crisis is really biting hard. And a lot of that pressure is and criticism is being directed at the Prime Minister. So those focus groups that you discussed, that's coming up in both of the major political parties' own focus groups. And there's a lot of pressure building internally for some sort of major reset or a restructure in terms of how the government does business. And also potentially there's still some chattering around about the need for a ministerial reshuffle. So I think that the government will get through next week. So they'll wrap up Parliament this week, trying to get through the security legislation. And then next week is the release of the migration review and MyEFO, the mid-year budget update. Then they'll go away over the summer break, hoping that the management of natural disasters holds up. And then they'll just go full court press in relation to domestic issues heading towards the May budget.
Yeah. Well, let's just zero in a bit on these new laws for the released detainees that the government is scrambling to pass before Parliament breaks up for Christmas. These are modelled on similar laws for high-risk terrorists. The Albanese government proposing laws that could give the High Court the power to jail the most dangerous among those of the freed immigration detainees. But, Geoff, would these laws apply to all of those who've been released after the High Court decision or just a select few?
So this is the big question from the coalition. So they got to see the legislation at 10 o'clock this morning. The legislation has been released ahead of its being tabled into Parliament on Wednesday. We also learned today, concerningly, that the vast majority of these 148 detainees have committed serious violent or sexual crimes. And the question goes to, does the legislation set the bar too high in relation to state and territory courts and judges who will determine, make decisions around detention orders and also monitoring orders? And I think that's the real question mark, is in terms of the Immigration Minister, how many of these 140 cases will be brought and how swiftly will they be done? And the coalition urging Anthony Albanese, when he sits down with the state and territory ministers at a national cabinet meeting on Wednesday, to bring them along with this journey to ensure that their systems are in place to get these people either back in detention or under surveillance.
All right, let's have a look at the climate conference. We've seen overnight that French President Emmanuel Macron says Australia should lift its ban on nuclear energy. Here's what he had to say.
I hope that you will manage to lift the ban. I mean, nuclear energy is absolutely a necessity to succeed.
Yes.
For carbon neutrality in 2050.
Certainly.
I mean, now it's with the control of international to make agency and with the best possible regulation. I think this is a fair and a good decision to relaunch nuclear capacities.
So, Geoff, Australia has supported a pledge from the COP28 Climate Summit to triple global renewable energy capacity, but Australia didn't sign up to the commitment by 22 other countries, including US, Canada, Japan and the UK, to triple nuclear energy capacity by 2050. Does it look like Australia is increasingly out of step when it comes to nuclear?
Well, Joel Fitzgibbon, the former Labor minister, is also over at COP, and this morning he posted a long explanation as to why the prohibition on nuclear energy or the ban should be lifted. We've spoken with other senior Labor figures who agree. Basically, the whole proposition of getting to net zero by 2050, it's a huge, ambitious target. And it's pretty clear from John Kerry in the US, Joe Biden the UK, our key AUKUS partners and others, that without nuclear in the grid or as part of the mix, there's no way in the world that this target will be met. But Ted O'Brien will head over to Dubai tomorrow. Chris Bowen heads over on Wednesday, and there'll be a bit more argy-bargy around this nuclear debate. There's also a debate that Chris Bowen will have to negotiate in relation to a push to phase down unabated fossil fuels, which would obviously have a big impact on Australia's exports. So I understand that we haven't come to a decision as a country. That will happen over the next week towards COP wrapping up on Tuesday.